Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Sunday morning sitting group, InsightLA. My name is Trudy. I'm the founding teacher at InsightLA, and with me is my Valentine, my husband, Jack Kornfield. And today, Jack will be leading the meditation, and then we'll share doing teaching together. And for those of you who may be new to InsightLA, today we divide the time roughly into thirds where we meditate, then we have some teachings, and then we have a chance for some dialogue with each other. And I'm really, really happy to be here with you today and that Jack is here with me. And I want to thank, is it Camille who's our moderator today? Yes, thank you, Camille, for moderating, for volunteering to do that. And welcome, everybody. So, yeah, I'll turn it over to Jack, and I'm going to get the bell.
Right, the necessary tools for meditation teacher, the bell. Good morning, everybody. We begin, as Trudy said, usually with a meditation, as we will now, for 25, 30 minutes. So let yourself find a way to sit that's stable and comfortable. Steady, well grounded. We could do and enter into meditation with a kind of goal to have a particular experience some way. But there's obviously another way to enter meditation, and that's, as Zen Master Suzuki Roshi said, the goal of meditation is to keep your beginner's mind, to begin to see things anew. And Rachel Carlson, the great naturalist, put it this way. She said, if I had influence with the good fairy who's supposed to preside over the birth of all children, I should ask that her gift to each child in the world would be a sense of wonder so indestructible it would last for a lifetime. So with this, let your eyes close gently. And first, take a couple of long breaths. Let the body begin to settle. Let the eyes and face be soft. Loosen the jaw. If you like, you can roll your head in a little circle to release your neck and let it find a simple upright. Let your shoulders relax and arms and hands rest easily. Feel the weight of your body, the contact with the chair or wherever you're seated or lying. And feel the heaviness of your body being met by the solidness of the earth. You can completely let go into this connection with the earth, steady. Let the belly be soft and the breath natural. And let the heart be soft as well to receive whatever arises with kindness, compassion. And now, with this embodied presence, begin to notice the wonder, as Rachel Carlson says, of the fact that your body is breathing in this ocean of air, breathing with all that lives. And notice wherever you feel the breath as it rises and passes in the belly or the chest, or the coolness in the nostrils or the back of the throat. And let the breath have its own life. Let it breathe itself. And you begin to pay attention to this extraordinary process of the body interbreathing with all things. And with each breath, as Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh suggested, you can softly whisper, calm or ease, inviting the quality of calm and ease to grow as you attend to and relax into the breath. And as you sense each breath, you can let the thoughts and feelings, sensations, all the other experiences rise and fall like waves of the ocean around the breath. And let the breath stay at the center of your attention, relaxing into each breath. And gently return the attention to this breath whenever the attention wanders off. No judgment, just a simple return, which itself is an act of presence and attention. The training of the mind and heart to be just here in a simple way. This breath, just here and now. And the quality of attention, mindfulness of breathing, is often described as the practice of calm and insight. The calming is a steadying of attention from the usual busy mind, settling on this breath. again and again, relaxing into the breathing. And the insight grows from observing the process of life as you get quiet. So as you feel the breath come and go, now begin to notice the very beginning of each breath and the ending. And if there is any, the space between breaths, even for a moment. And what does the space between breaths feel like? Quiet or being or presence? And ever more clearly notice how the breath begins and breathes by itself. Relaxed and easy. Notice the breath as it begins and ends, and the space between breaths if it's apparent. And you become the steady, loving witness of the breath. The mindful, loving awareness. With the same attentive, loving attention, notice the states around the breath. Is there a growing quality of calm? Or is the feeling there of being hurried a little? Let's get to the end of the meditation. Do the states feel gracious, relaxed? No judgment, just noticing. Or maybe there's a sense of striving or worriedness or ease. And just as you can sense and feel the breath come and go in the space between breaths, you can be the loving witness of the states around and behind the breath. Notice them gently and feel how the breath breathes in the midst of it all. You become the mindful, loving witness of this flow of life arising each moment anew. And as you feel the breath, let yourself sense or imagine or open to this being the earth breathing herself. This is the same breath and air of the sparrows and the dolphins and the worms in the Amazon rainforest, all breathing together. And you relax into this rising and passing of breath and of all things. Gracious, steady, and open. The earth breathes herself. And finally, add the feeling of joy, even if there are other feelings present, sadness or calm or excitement or worry. With each breath, invite the quality of joy to arise as well. Joy that you can breathe, joy that life breathes through you. And notice what happens. Steady breath and joy. And staying with the quality of kind attention, of mindful, loving awareness. Let your eyes open gently and come back just where you are with a sense of graciousness or ease. Maybe if you like, you can take 30 seconds to stand up and stretch your body.
Are you ringing the bell or not?
Trudy, what?
Are you going to ring the bell or is this the end?
Yeah.
Let's wait for the bell.
I'm so used to not ringing a bell because it doesn't work on my iPad.
Oh, yeah. No. Have to just change the Zoom setting and then it'll work.
It didn't. I changed it.
So I was practicing like Effie does, lying down today. It takes a lot, I've discovered, which many of you I'm sure already know. It just takes a lot of energy to heal and to recover from anything, actually. And, you know, especially well, anything I think that is trauma for the body or for our hearts, anything it can be, you know, an injury or an illness or sexual assault or other kind of violence, or it can be whatever there is that really deeply impacts the body and the heart. It takes time to heal. And I don't know about you, but I've said this before, patience is my least favorite virtue to cultivate. Excuse me, and it takes patience. So today we wanted to just almost go, I know in my own practice, I'm just sort of going back to the basics right now. The basics of how to bring loving attention to the moment and how to integrate more and more the times of going about everyday activities, moving around, and the times of formal practice where, you know, we're sitting very quietly together. And I found this actually beautiful article written by the poet, Mary Oliver. But this was prose. This was writing that she did for a newspaper in her home area of Cape Cod. And in it, she was describing her walks by the ocean and how she goes outdoors and how she observes things, excuse me, and how that observing faculty that she has that capacity to observe and to notice things, she feels that this is it's really the most important thing. She said she would go out she's passed away now. She lived on Cape Cod. Mary Oliver, the poet, did. And she said, I would go out every day and she would walk along the beach, walk along the ponds, just observing nature and immersing herself in nature. And she said she didn't go out with some sort of preconceived idea of what she was looking for, or even with the idea of finding a poem while she was walking around. That she went out to walk around just to notice things. And she said, I go out simply to notice everything and anything. I go looking for a more serious reason. What do you think that serious reason is that she goes out looking for? She said, it's for pleasure. I go out looking for pleasure, for the pleasure of it. As Jack was saying toward the end of the guided meditation, it's like you can sprinkle joy. You can bring a little joy into it. And she says, I go out looking for the pleasure because pleasure is necessary. She calls it affirmation. I would call it confidence or faith or trust. She said, and that's necessary for the soul. And we would say maybe the heart, because of course in Buddhist tradition, we don't talk about the soul, but we talk about the heart. And she said, and I would be strong-souled. We would say, to strengthen our hearts so that I can, excuse me, I would be strong-souled the better to honor this world and my little voyage through it. So each one of us is on our little voyage through this world. And I think most of us, would agree that we want to respect, to honor both our voyage and the world through which and in which we travel from birth to death. And I love what Mary Oliver goes on to say, maybe because her poems have always been such a great comfort, really for decades. I'm so grateful to her. Her poems have been such a great comfort at times of low energy or illness or grief, some difficult passage that we all at times move through in our journey, in our voyages through this life. And she says, when she sees something amazing, and she said 10 times a day, she'll see something in nature that inspires her. In this particular paragraph, she's talking about a sandworm and the fragile cylinder that it builds, this cylinder of sand, like a kind of three-dimensional tunnel that you can observe above the sand. And she says, whenever she sees something like that, something happens in her heart. And it's like some strengthening of her capacity for wonder, as Jack was mentioning toward the beginning of the meditation. She says, it's some strengthening throb of amazement, some good, sweet, empathic ping, and a swelling of the heart, a good swelling of the heart. And I think we all know these moments, I have them also walking on the beach at times, looking at the sky, especially at low tide when the water is pulled way out. For those of you who live near an ocean, go for a walk at the lowest tide and you can see the whole sky reflected in the water that's left on the sand as the tide pulls the ocean back toward the moon. And she goes on to say, again, something that really, really resonates with me and maybe will with you. She says that she's talking about that moment of that ping in the heart, when you just see something. Sometimes for me, it's just like a dog running really running. They run with so much pleasure and speed. Of course, it could be another animal, but I live in the city, so it's more likely to be a dog than a horse or an antelope. But she's talking about that moment when something kind of opens our eyes, touches our hearts, anything. And she says, this is the first, the wildest, and the wisest thing I know, that the soul exists. We say, of course, we know that our spirit, our heart, metaphorical heart exists, and that it is built entirely out of attentiveness. And that's the piece that is so resonant for those of us who practice mindfulness, who practice awareness, who do meditation practices and walking meditation and try to be as lovingly aware throughout the course of our day, through the days that go into weeks and months and the years of our voyage through this life. That trusting that this is the most important thing, the quality of attention that we are bringing to the experience of the moment, that this is what is so important, because that kind of wholehearted attention is a form of love. It's a form of caring enough to be present in this life. A few weeks ago, or maybe it was a couple of weeks ago, we came back a couple of weeks ago from Costa Rica. And actually, maybe when I was still in Costa Rica, the time is a little bit of a blur, but Thomas was teaching this group, and I just popped in to say hello to you because I had been absent for a few weeks and really very, very ill for much of that time. But I just wanted you to see me. I wanted to see all of you. So I just kind of popped in. But one of the things I talked about was my experience in the hospital of the people who would come. I was in the hospital for 9 days, which was a pretty long time to cool your heels in a hospital bed. And the people who would come into the room, I was so, my nervous system, I guess, was so sensitive in there that I could feel who was really present and who wasn't. Who was distracted or who was giggling about her boyfriend or, flirting with the guy who, puts in the IV. Or I could feel who was bringing attention to attend to me in that bed, whether they were just taking blood pressure, vitals, whether they were putting in some medication, whatever it was. But that quality of presence is what differentiated the people who I felt with my heart, who I felt their healing presence. It was so important. And, it feels like, yes, the heart is built out of attentiveness, that love. I mean, how can we be loving to somebody if we are not attentive to them? Children have sonar for this. Babies have sonar for this. They know when your attention is elsewhere, and they will do anything to get your attention. And if, positive efforts don't work, like I remember once my daughter, when she was, I don't know, she was less than 2. She was still in a diaper. Maybe she was 2. And my then husband was more interested in taking a nap than paying attention to her. And so she went up to him, toddled up in her diaper, and she, got his attention. And then she reached into her diaper and pulled out a nice little dry piece of round poo and put it in his hand. That was her gift to him. And I don't think she intended it to be, a punishment for not paying attention to her. I think that she just really wanted his attention. And so she thought she'd give him something that she produced from her own body as a gift. And so anyway, that's just a way, if those efforts, those positive gift-giving efforts don't work to get somebody's attention, we know what children will do. They'll act out, they'll act up, they'll be bad, they'll do anything to get our attention. And they'd rather have our angry, our angry attention than none at all. So yes, the heart is built of attentiveness. And I feel like the more we practice, the more we become sensitive and awake, feeling and perceiving the quality of each other's hearts, of the hearts around us. And, you know, we get glimpses into how present we're able to be. I could go on, but guess what? Jack is here with us today. So I'm going to make some room for you to talk.
Okay, my dear. Hi, everyone. Yeah, this is, it's always a pleasure to be back at InsightLA. And I'm also excited because you may well know that next month in March, InsightLA at its old haunt, if you will, its old temple on Olympic in Santa Monica will be reopening. And so those who can will be able to come in person, and they'll also be virtual at the same time. And so it's a very exciting time for the kind of rebirth of InsightLA.
And the summit.
Well, go ahead.
Oh, and I also want to mention in terms of the rebirth of InsightLA, because I thought this is what Jack was going to say, that starting next week, there's a summit, one of those online conferences that are free. I mean, you can, anyway, they're free to register. And this is a gathering of teachers that have been Jack's and my friends and companions in the Dharma for the last 50 years. It's a collection of so many amazing teachers and luminaries that you never really ever see in one spot. Now, of course, this is one virtual spot, but you get to have teachings from this really pretty astonishing gathering. And you can register for it. Maybe, Camille, you could put it in the chat. It's called Living a Joyful Life. And I think it might just say in the URL, livingajoyfullife.com or summit livingajoyfullife.com. But you can register. And the cool thing about it and why it's important for InsightLA is that all the profits are going to InsightLA. How do you make a profit from a free summit? Well, you buy the package of all the teachings and then you can listen to them for the rest of your life. And the package is not that expensive. So if you want to support InsightLA, buy the package of teachings and listen to them for the rest of your life. Okay.
That's attention and advertising put together, which is really what advertising is. You know, when we have your attention, there's a summit on joy. Why don't you enjoy joining it? So I also kind of reflecting on attention, as you were talking, Trudy, and there's a poetic side and a psychological side and a liberating side, all these different dimensions. One of the most important things in the Buddhist teachings is that mindfulness, where it says is all helpful, is the gateway to liberation. It's one thing to pay attention, and it's another to discover that that attention also leads to a profound sense of freedom and well-being. And how is that so? It's so because mindfulness allows you to step back from being completely lost in your story, your thoughts, the things that are happening. It lets you attend to them, but you can attend to them in a way that has a graciousness or a perspective, the quality of open, non-judgmental awareness. And you begin to shift from being caught in the things of the world to engaging in them but to engaging in them from a place of ease and freedom. Now, as I said, when I first was starting to lead the meditation, the two dimensions of attention in mindfulness of breathing are calm and insight. And they're really part of all of the kind of practices that we do. So one part of meditation, and we all use it, is just to calm us, to quiet ourselves down, to steady ourselves. And in doing so, also, we can see a little more clearly. It's very hard to have understanding if the attention is scattered and mind busy and full of past and future and all those things. So we calm, and then insight comes. And the insight, which is liberating, is to notice the process of experience. Yes, you notice the breath, but then you also began to notice that it comes and goes. And then you were invited to notice the space between breaths and to feel how the breath was interbreathing with all the breath of life. And then you were invited to add a little bit of joy. And you start to step back with mindfulness in a way and be able to become aware of the dance of your life with a more spacious or gracious attention. And I think you've all found or felt that at different times in your life. Now, some people might say, wait, I thought mindfulness was getting so close that when you took a cup of tea, that was your world. You weren't worried about anything else. And Robert Aiken, who was a Zen master in Hawaii, was imprisoned in Japan, a prisoner of war during the Second World War. He'd been there studying Zen, and they threw most Americans into some form of a prison. And he wanted a little more space to read and do other things, and he was quite confined. So he took a pen and he wrote a small poem and sent it to the commandant of the prison complex. And in it, he wrote, "Taking a cup of tea, I stopped the war." A very Zen poem. And the commandant read it, and in that fashion of respect for the haiku tradition and the Zen and the tradition of poets speaking the truth, Robert Aiken got a pass for more freedom because the commandant saw his quality of attention and so forth. It was that small, but so sometimes you think, well, mindfulness is taking that cup of tea. But actually, here's how attention works, just to play with it for a little bit. It's more like a zoom lens. And so sometimes you can zoom in so close that you become the breath arising and passing, and that's the whole universe appearing and disappearing. Or that cup of tea becomes everything, and there's this surrender into the experience that's beautiful. And you shift from being separate yourself to becoming that. Then you zoom out a little bit, and sometimes attention is like sitting on your shoulder, watching yourself. Okay, now she's walking down the street. Oh, now she notices in the window that there's some interesting things in that shop. Or now he notices that person walking by. Now he has a little thought about that person, liking or disliking or whatever. So you're sort of there, sometimes with commentary, but noticing the play of your life. And then sometimes you can zoom back and become the sky of awareness. You open wide angle, and there's the street and the person walking down and the feelings in the shops and everything, but it's all appearing in this vast space of awareness. And at different times, you've probably felt all of these. And then someone would say, well, which is the right kind? Which is the best kind? And of course, the answer is yes. That's always the answer of those kind of koans. The answer is yes, that all of those are attention. They're all beautiful, and they're all liberating in their own way. we have the capacity in the content of our minds, just as when you added joy. And it was interesting. What was it like if you tried to invite or sprinkle joy, as Trudy said? What was it like when you noticed the space between breaths? And you start to see the fabric of reality. And then you start to see that you can determine or invite different qualities. So the poet Eduardo Galeano writes, the church says the body is a sin. Science says the body is a machine. The marketplace says the body's good business. The body says, I am a fiesta. And even as you hear the poem, you can also sense that as we pay attention, there can be different lenses. It can appear scientific and mechanical. It can appear, as something good or bad. There can be shame or guilt or joy or pleasure, all those things with what you're experiencing. And the poets do understand this, because in a few lines they say, here, step back and see in a new way, with the eyes of wonder. Here's a little poem by Christopher Harold. It's like a haiku. Cherry petals. A small child adds a handful to the busker's cap. So there you are on the street, and somebody's playing a little bit of music of some kind, and some small child picks the cherry blossoms and adds a handful into the cap with the coins that people have left. And all of a sudden, the whole world opens up in those tender little lines of cherry blossoms and the small child. All of these are dimensions of attention, and they invite first calm and presence. Then secondly, the liberation of a shift of identity from being lost in where we're getting and how it should be and so forth, to what Suzuki Roshi called that beginner's mind, to become the loving witness of the world. To see, as Rachel Carlson says, with a sense of wonder, and to step back in that way and become the loving awareness itself. And then you can see both what's tragic and what's unimaginably beautiful, all the things that make up the 10,000 joys and sorrows of life. And you become the Bodhisattva of compassion, the Buddha, seeing with kindly and heart and the eyes of wisdom, and say, wow, look at this incarnation. How do I want to live in this? And your attention both notices and gives you freedom, and then invites you to respond in an attentive and a caring way. Cherry petals. A small child adds a handful to the busker's cap. What a universe this is. What an amazing cosmos. Okay, dear.
Thank you, Jock. That was beautiful. The cherry blossoms or a little piece of poo. I really was thinking about gifts can take so many different forms. And one of the things Mary Oliver said in a poem, I forget the name of that poem. Let's see, it's called The Spirit Likes to Dress Up. And she said, the spirit likes to dress up like this: 10 fingers, 10 toes, shoulders, and all the rest at night. And then she goes on and on about the spirit. And she says, it could float, of course, it's a spirit, right? It could float, of course, but it would rather plumb rough matter. It needs the metaphor of the body. It needs the body's world.